On my 1094th day as Amelia Wilson's husband, I asked her for a divorce. A flicker of confusion crossed her face before she put on her usual, refined composure. "As you wish." She said it so casually, as if we were discussing whether to switch out the milk on the breakfast table. She didn't even bother to ask why. On the 1095th day, I acted as if nothing had happened. I gave her and the kids a warm send-off, and then I left the Wilson family for good. At first, Amelia and her family thought I was just throwing a tantrum. But slowly they realized something was wrong. The first to act out was our younger son, Finn. He was happy at first that the dad who was always on his case was gone. But on the day of the school fair, his mom forgot to tell the nanny to pack his cookies. When all his classmates gathered around, hoping for the teddy bear cookies his dad always baked from scratch, all he had were store-bought ones. That's when it hit him. Maybe his dad wasn't so useless after all. The next to feel it was Noah. He'd always despised the man who used underhanded tactics to replace his real father. But one day, during a thunderstorm, he leaned against his door, expecting to hear the soft humming from the other side. And when it never came, a sudden panic set in. Mr. Wilson was the third. His family doctor told him his blood pressure was high again and that he'd need to start medication. He suddenly realized it had been over 2 weeks since he'd had one of the healthy meals David always prepared for him. Even Amelia's married younger brother, Kevin, started casually asking her when she was going to bring his brother-in-law back home. The Wilson family began mentioning me more and more often to Amelia. Some even started advising her that a woman should be more gracious, that humbling herself to coax her husband wouldn't cost her any dignity. Finally, Mr. Wilson couldn't take it anymore. At the breakfast table, he gave Amelia an ultimatum. "Amelia, I know you have your pride, but a husband and wife shouldn't be estranged like this. If it's too awkward for you to ask David to come back, then let an old man like me have a word with him." Amelia's already unapproachable expression turned a few degrees colder. They all thought she was too proud to lower herself and ask me to come back. The truth was, she'd already called me the day after I left. But she'd been blocked. The number she hadn't dialed once in 10 years was unreachable the one time she finally decided to call. At that thought, the woman's face grew colder still. Her gaze swept over her 2 sons, who, though silent, were looking at her expectantly. A wave of helplessness washed over her. "Dad, don't worry about David and me. How can we not? You have 2 children together. How can a man be so irresponsible?" For the first time, she found her father's nagging incredibly irritating. "If you can find him, then go ahead and try," she yelled before turning and walking away. It was only then she realized, belatedly, just how much David could affect her emotions. The 3 left at the table stared at each other. The old man was the first to take out his phone. "I'm going to ask him if he still wants this family or not." But the only response was a mechanical female voice. "The number you have dialed is not in service." The 2 boys couldn't sit still either. They both tried calling the number, but with the same result. It was Noah who spoke up first. "He never misses our calls. What if something happened to him?" Amelia's hand froze on the doorknob as a montage of crime scenes flashed through her mind. Her heart suddenly began to race. "Alex, my husband is missing. Please file a police report for me. Wait, first contact a few private investigators. I need this kept quiet. I'll send you the details in a minute." Amelia pinched the bridge of her nose, forcing herself to calm down. "I settled down in a small town down south, renting a little house with a yard. Right now, I'm lying in a wicker chair, enjoying the rare coolness of a summer afternoon. The town is lovely and livable, with beautiful scenery year-round. I'm thinking of opening a flower shop here. I never used to like impractical things like flowers and plants, but after 3 years as Amelia's husband, I'd somehow developed a bit of a green thumb." Amelia found me on the evening of the 3rd day. Her always impeccable pantsuit had a rare flaw. Following my gaze, her eyes landed on a button that was about to fall off her cuff. A hint of embarrassment touched her cold face. "Why didn't you come home?" Her voice was icy. I looked up at her, surprised. "Ms. Wilson, as your soon-to-be ex-husband, I don't think my presence is required in your home anymore. It was strange. For the first time, I saw a flash of anger on Amelia's face. Are our marriage and our family just a joke to you? Her attitude was starting to annoy me, and my own impatience began to show. On day 1094, I asked for a divorce and you agreed. Have you forgotten? Amelia was clearly not good at arguing. She could never stay on topic. Did you just say, day 1094? A look of confusion crossed her face. I realized my slip-up. Although I was prepared to tell them the truth to keep the Wilson family from clinging to me, I still tried to bluff my way through. Ms. Wilson, just let me know when you're free. We can go to the courthouse anytime. She frowned, taking a moment before she said, everyone's having a hard time adjusting with you gone. I just smiled, unconcerned. They'll get used to it soon enough. Amelia sighed softly. Dad's blood pressure is up, and the doctor has recommended medication. Noah's grades are slipping, and his teacher says he's sleeping in class. I cut her off. Ms. Wilson, that's your father and your son. What does that have to do with me? The woman looked as if she never expected me to say something like that, her beautiful brows furrowing even more tightly. David, I think we need to talk. If there's been some kind of misunderstanding, it's best we clear it up as soon as possible. A wicked impulse struck me. Mimicking Amelia's usual tone, I said, Amelia, I don't have to explain my every decision to you. Some things you wouldn't understand even if I did. I made a request, you agreed, and we both get what we want. Isn't that for the best? Her expression changed again. It was bizarre. In 3 years as her husband, I'd seen more expressions on her face today than in all that time combined. What about Finn? Your own son. Are you going to abandon him too? At the mention of his name, this body's heart still ached involuntarily. I remembered how, in David's final days, this was the child he couldn't let go of. But the people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you the most. The little boy, 4 or 5 years old, had declared in his high, childish voice, Mommy, I don't want the bad man to be my daddy. I want to be Mr. Evans's son, just like my brother. The entire Wilson family was there when Finn said it. Noah shot David a defiant look. Amelia looked like she was about to scold him, but Mr. Wilson and her younger brother stopped her, saying, he's just a kid. You can't get mad at him for saying what he thinks. At that moment, I thought to myself that, of course, you don't have to argue with a child. But what about the adults who coached and encouraged him? But David said nothing. He helped Finn put on his coat, gathered the gifts they were bringing to the Evans house, and then stood at the door with the staff, watching the family leave to celebrate Noah's birthday at Amelia's ex-husband's home. Only I could see the redness in David's eyes the moment he turned away. Thinking of this, my expression turned cold. The divorce papers make it very clear. I don't want your family's money, your house, or any of your people. You, Amelia, clearly not expecting my sudden outburst, stammered for a moment before saying, David, what's wrong with you? We're a family. Whatever happened, you need to tell us so we can solve it together. A family? I savored the words. She rarely considered me part of the Wilson family. Even if she introduced me as Mr. Wilson to outsiders, there was always a clear line between me and them. What was I in the Wilson family? Probably a high-end butler. Mr. Wilson, Noah, Finn, Kevin, even Amelia's ex-husband, they were all part of her family. I was the only one who wasn't. Ms. Wilson, did you ever truly see me as family? I laughed sarcastically. If I remember correctly, every member of the Wilson family gets at least 3% of the shares in Wilson Corp. Your ex-husband, Mr. Evans, and your sister-in-law, Sarah, both have them, right? So let me ask you, as your current husband, a member of your family, where are my shares? Amelia's hand tightened into a fist, a habit she had when she felt stressed. David, you're different from them. You don't understand the business. Is that so? Do you have to be a professional manager to own shares in your family's company? Does it mean I have to start calling the shots at board meetings? Caught off guard by my retort, her expression turned awkward for a second. David, I didn't know you cared about this. When we go back, I can talk to them about giving you shares. I scoffed. No need, Ms. Wilson. You've missed the point again. I'm not negotiating with you. I'm telling you that I'm tired of playing the part of your husband. I don't want anything except a divorce. Please, take your family and get out of my life." Amelia's face instantly flushed red. She must have been a person in charge for so long that she'd never been rejected so directly. She turned sharply and left, tossing one last line over her shoulder. "See you at the courthouse, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." When Amelia got home, she was so agitated she didn't want to speak to anyone. She just wanted to hide in her study. But Finn wasn't old enough to read the room. He missed his father, so he asked bluntly, "Mommy, can you make Daddy come back? I want Daddy to take me to school, and I want to read picture books with him." Her older son stood up too. "Mom, is he okay?" She looked up at the three people who should have been in bed long ago, all waiting up for her because of that man. Her irritation grew. "You're all dying for him to come back," she thought, "but to him you're just annoying burdens." The woman opened her mouth, unsure how to tell them she was being divorced, that the man was never coming back. "He's doing fine. He opened a flower shop in a small town down south," she said, picking the easiest question to answer. "Then bring Daddy back, Mommy," Finn said innocently. She suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion. Remembering the man's attitude, she steeled herself and said, "He's not coming back. We're going to the courthouse tomorrow to get a divorce." "What?" This time it was Mr. Wilson. "How can you two be so irresponsible? Why get a divorce when things are fine?" "Dad," she said, "stay out of it." Thinking of how the man had looked at them with such disdain, she added viciously, "Besides, the way he became my husband wasn't exactly honorable. It's for the best if he's come to his senses and stops clinging to our family." Mr. Wilson seemed taken aback. After a long pause, he said, "Amelia, he's actually been a very dedicated husband all these years. You should let go of what happened." But Amelia, as if venting the humiliation she'd felt earlier, continued, "It's better this way. With his character, I don't want him to be a bad influence on Noah and Finn. Dad, you have to think about Finn too. If he continues to live with him, how painful will it be for Finn when he finds out his father is a man who would do anything to climb the social ladder?" She was about to go on, but Mr. Wilson cut her off. "That's enough, Amelia. Don't say another word." As far as Amelia could remember, this was the first time her father had ever defended David in front of her. Before she could react, tears welled up in the old man's eyes. "Amelia, I should have told you a long time ago, but, you reminded me today. I shouldn't have let my own selfish desires create a rift between you all and David." The words were apparently difficult to say, and the old man took a moment to compose himself. "You've always resented David for drugging you at that party, forcing you to marry him." He then looked at his beloved older grandson, Noah. "And Noah, all these years, you've resented him for robbing your parents of the chance to get back together, haven't you? That's why, no matter how kind he was to you, how much he cared for you, you were always cold to him. You wouldn't even call him Dad. The truth is, you don't know. He wasn't the one who drugged the drink. The whole thing was a misunderstanding. In fact, David was a victim, too." All three of them stared, wide-eyed. Noah could feel his body trembling slightly. He had truly hated that man, because he had drugged his mother, ruining any chance of her getting back together with his father, destroying his chance of ever having a complete family again. But if it was all a misunderstanding, then everything he'd done to that man over the years, he didn't dare think about it. Mr. Wilson continued, "Back then, I was actually trying to get Amelia and Noah's father back together. Your divorce was so childish, and your relationship afterward wasn't bad. You're both stubborn and not the type to back down easily, so I thought I'd give you a push. At that party, I prepared the drug. It was meant for Amelia and Noah's father. But by some twist of fate, the drink that Noah's father was supposed to have was drunk by David instead. At first, I also thought the man knew something and intentionally went along with the mistake. But later, I happened to be talking with Sam about it, and we pieced it together. We realized that in our haste, we'd made a mistake and given the drink to the wrong person. But by then, you had already given birth to Finn. Selfishly, I was afraid he'd use his biological son to treat Noah poorly. I thought if he carried the stigma, he'd have to at least pretend to love Noah. So I kept this secret until today. Grandpa, Noah said, the word tasting bitter in his mouth. He held his head high, as if clinging to his last shred of defiance. Then why didn't he ever explain himself? Why was he willing to take the fall for all these years? He did explain. We just didn't believe him, Amelia said, her voice strained. For some reason, she remembered a long time ago, when she'd had too much to drink and had pressed herself against David. He had pushed her away, saying he didn't want to. She had been upset about something that day, and seeing the rejection in David's eyes, she had instinctively said, "Isn't this what you dreamed of, climbing into my bed? Now that you've gotten your wish, what's with the pretense?" She clearly remembered how David's eyes had darkened. He had said, "Amelia, I like you, but I never schemed against you. I never wanted to be with you this way." She had just scoffed and continued what she was doing. Back then, she didn't believe him and she didn't care about him. All these years, had anyone in their family ever cared about David? In their minds, they had already convicted him, already branded him as despicable. Only Finn was clueless. He asked timidly, "Does Grandpa mean that Daddy didn't break up my brother's mommy and Daddy? Daddy isn't a bad person?" Noah couldn't hold it in any longer. He pulled his younger brother into a hug. "Finn, what I told you before, no, everything we heard, what Grandpa and Uncle Kevin said about your dad, it was all wrong. We were all lying to you. We all lied. Your daddy isn't a bad person. He's a very, very good person." Noah couldn't go on. He was choking on his sobs, unable to form a complete sentence. The next day at the courthouse, I saw the whole Wilson clan from a distance. I couldn't figure out why they needed to bring the whole cavalry just for a divorce. As I got closer, Finn rushed up and hugged my leg. "Daddy, where did you go? I missed you so much." This kid had never been very close to me. The Wilsons had raised him well, self-disciplined and polite, but with me, his own father, he never minced words. In the past, a gesture this affectionate would have made me feel overwhelmed with joy. But now, on day 1095, I no longer had to play along with this family. I looked at Amelia. "Your son is being unruly. Aren't you going to do something?" I saw the color drain from all their faces. Amelia, probably worried about hurting her son's feelings, stepped forward and pulled him into her arms. "David, Finn just wants to be close to his father. He hasn't done anything wrong. Is that so?" A cruel impulse made me crouch down and look Finn in the eyes. But how could a bad man like me deserve to be Finn's daddy? Finn's eyes instantly turned red, but he fought back the tears. "David, I know you've been wronged all these years, but you can't treat Finn this way. He's just a child." Amelia's voice was thick with suppressed anger. I stood up, unconcerned. "It's fine. Let's just hurry up and get the divorce finalized. Then I won't stand in your way of finding him a good stepfather." "David." This time it was Mr. Wilson. He always loved to play the part of the family patriarch around me, complaining that the tea was too cold or too hot, that the food was too oily or too bland. The old man never hesitated to try out any method he could think of to make my life difficult. I remember one winter, he heard about some special preserved vegetable buns and made me cook them for him. I steamed batch after batch from morning till night, but he was never satisfied. Later, after the kitchen staff had gone home, I was dozing off at a table when I overheard a housekeeper say, "The old master is really giving him a hard time. Hasn't he steamed 7 or 8 batches already?" I know, right? It's not the buns he's unhappy with. It's the person. How did I finally pass his test? That's right. In the dead of winter, I drove out to the countryside alone, went to 5 or 6 different villages, and finally bought the traditionally sun-dried, preserved vegetables he wanted. Only then did he stop. I looked at Mr. Wilson. "Save it, will you? Your former son-in-law isn't worthy of your lectures. Wait until your daughter finds you a new one. Then you can show off your authority." The Wilsons all looked as if they couldn't believe that I, the pushover they could mold and shape however they pleased, could have such a backbone. Mr. Wilson was too stunned by my disrespect to even get angry. He just stared at me blankly. "David, what's gotten into you? Son, we're a family. What's all this talk about divorce? Don't say such unlucky things." I was getting tired of their melodrama. Amelia, we had a deal yesterday. Let's go in, get this done, and from now on, we go our separate ways. I started walking toward the service hall, but Amelia grabbed my arm. What? I snapped, turning back impatiently. David, don't be like this. You're not thinking rationally right now, and there's been a misunderstanding between us. Don't act on impulse. It was rare for her to speak to me so gently, but here she was, coaxing me at the courthouse entrance. I turned back and looked at her seriously. Amelia, are you crazy? You get to ditch a lowlife like me without spending a dime. Isn't that what you've always dreamed of? What are you hesitating for now? Amelia's brows were knitted tightly together. David, I learned some things yesterday. I admit I've treated you unfairly all these years. Please, give me a chance to make it up to you. Okay? No thanks. As for the past, I'll just write it off as a bad memory. As long as I don't have to face your family ever again, I'll wake up laughing in my dreams. David, a flash of shame crossed Amelia's face. Let's go home first. There are some things I need to explain to you. Her tone was firm, and she looked ready to have me dragged away if I didn't go with her. Fine. I had a few things I needed to make clear to them, too. In the Wilson family study, Amelia was unusually pleasant. David, about the party, we misunderstood you. I only found out yesterday that you were a victim in that incident, too. I'm sorry. She sounded sincere, but I just laughed coldly. You found out? From where? And since you know I was framed, who was the real culprit? Amelia looked away, ashamed. Mr. Wilson's face was beet red. Go on. Weren't you going to tell me the truth and clear up the misunderstanding? David, don't be so aggressive. What happened back then was a mistake. Nobody wanted it to happen. Ha! A mistake? One mistake, and I have to live with the reputation of a self-debasing parasite, slaving away for your family for 10 years? You think one mistake erases all the evil your family has done to me? Amelia, you don't really think that by marrying me you did me some huge favor, do you? That now you can tell me your family misunderstood me and has decided to treat me better, and I'm supposed to drop to my knees and thank you with tears in my eyes? Wake up and smell the 21st century. My relentless barrage left Amelia speechless. If you know what's good for you, you'll finalize this divorce with me. Or you can drag it out if you want. I've got nothing to lose. As I was about to leave, Mr. Wilson's aged voice spoke up. David, the Wilson family has wronged you. It was me, this old fool, who made a mistake. I drugged you by accident, and then I let you suffer for all these years because I was afraid my own family would blame me. I'm swallowing my pride, and I apologize. David, you love Amelia so much, and you have Finn together. He's so young. Can you really bear to leave him? Daddy, Finn's crying started right on cue. I turned around and held up a hand, stopping the little boy from running to hug me. If you'd said all this to the David from 3 years ago, he probably would have fainted from happiness. But now, all I feel is that your family is disgusting and hypocritical. All right, since we're at this point, I might as well tell you the truth. I looked at the confusion in the Wilson family's eyes and pulled my new ID from my pocket. Leo? Amelia read the name on it. You changed your name? As you can see, I'm not David. My name is Leo. About 5 years ago, I was in a car accident. When I woke up, I found myself in David's body. I watched him get enslaved and humiliated by all of you, especially you. My gaze fell on Noah, and my voice turned cold. You are genuinely the cruelest kid I have ever seen. Noah's body trembled. I ignored him and continued. This went on for 2 years. Then one day, David said to me, Leo, I can't go on anymore. I'll give you my body. Please, can you just look after them for 3 years for me? That's when I learned his depression had become so severe it was causing physical symptoms. He was starting to have self-destructive tendencies. He knew he could no longer be a proper husband to you, Amelia. But Finn was too young to be without a father, so he came up with this deal with me. I paused, watching the various expressions on their faces. What? You don't believe me? Think I'm telling a story? I tossed a stack of medical records onto the table. Take a good look. See how your family drove David to his death. None of you should ever show your faces to me again. Honestly, if it weren't for my deal with David, I wouldn't want to spend a single second with you people. The whole family, from old to young. There's not a single good one among you. I walked out of the Wilson house without a shred of reluctance. Mr. Wilson's face was filled with terror. Amelia, is what he said true? Is David a ghost? Is he going to come back and get revenge on us? He trembled as he held onto Noah. Amelia, should we find a priest or something to perform a ritual? Amelia's heart was a chaotic mix of emotions. She knew none of them liked David, but she never imagined their dislike and mistreatment were severe enough to drive him to suicide. Dad? Amelia forced the word out of her throat. There are no ghosts. David was probably just sick. I'll have a specialist review his medical records. She fled the room. At that moment, David's words echoed in her mind. So that's how he saw them. He hated their family that much. This man she had always looked down on, who she'd always considered a stain on the Wilson family name. In his eyes, they were the most disgusting and ugly people in the world. She was efficient. It wasn't long before she got a preliminary diagnosis from a doctor. According to the records, David developed depression shortly after you gave birth to Finn. But back then, none of us noticed. Later, probably as a way to save himself, he developed a second personality, Leo. Amelia spoke with difficulty, explaining it to her father and older son. This personality, Leo, is completely different from his primary one. He doesn't love me, and he doesn't like anyone in the Wilson family. David's primary personality must have sensed Leo's hostility toward us, so he never let him take control of the body. But Amelia swallowed the lump in her throat, taking a long pause before continuing. Later, his symptoms became more and more obvious. Heart palpitations, insomnia, trembling. In the end, after Finn almost caught him trying to kill himself, he got scared. He loved his son so much. He couldn't bear to imagine the psychological trauma it would cause if Finn found him dead one day. But no one was there to help him. We, his so-called family, didn't even notice his pain. No, how could we not have noticed? We just got used to ignoring him, belittling him, and step by step we pushed him toward a dead end. He could have recovered if he had just left us back then and found a better environment. But he didn't. I guess it was because he couldn't let go of Finn. He made a deal with Leo. He let Leo take his place to be there for Finn as he grew up. The price was his own permanent disappearance. By the time Amelia finished, her voice was so hoarse she couldn't make a sound. She pressed her clenched fist against her lips, suppressing a sob. She remembered Leo's insistence on day 1095. 3 years. That was the 3 years David had bought with his own life. And what had they done? It wasn't like she hadn't noticed her older son's cruelty toward him. The dead insects left in his room. The handmade crafts he'd worked so hard on deliberately broken. And that winter, not long after Finn was born, when Noah pushed him into the outdoor swimming pool. Thinking back on it all now, if her son had treated anyone else in the family that way, hell, even a complete stranger, she would have scolded him and taught him a harsh lesson. But with David, she had watched coldly as her son's pranks grew more and more vicious. She had even thought to herself, this is the price he has to pay for scheming his way into marrying me. She looked at her father, a man who, despite not being a great intellect, had always been kind and gentle. Yet it was this same old man, who would tear up at the slightest hardship of a stranger, who had treated David with such biting cruelty. When Finn was just learning to talk, she had caught her father deliberately calling David a homewrecker in front of him. Later, their family took it even further. Her father intentionally kept Finn from getting close to David, scolding him in front of the child, leaving him with no dignity in his son's eyes. Even though David had been so good to them after marrying into the family, he remembered everyone's preferences, was respectful to her father, cared for Noah, and even had a child with her. How could they have enjoyed all he gave while being so cruel to him? Mom, please stop. Noah was the first to break. No, he can't be gone. He was so resilient. No matter what I did, he never got mad at me. How could he be gone? Noah was crying, but she felt none of her usual sympathy. They were all sinners. They all deserved to be tormented by their conscience. My flower shop is now open. Every day, I go to my garden to look at the vibrant colors. When the sunlight filters through the greenhouse glass and fills the room, my mood instantly lifts. The town gets a lot of tourists, and sometimes my garden hosts a few guests. I love sipping tea and listening to interesting people tell me about their travels. Once, I had just seen off an elderly couple who had traveled to over 20 countries after retiring. I was doubled over with laughter at the funny stories of their attempts to learn English. When I turned around, I saw Amelia and her two sons. My expression instantly turned cold. As I was turning to close the gate, Amelia reached out and stopped me. "David, we came to apologize today." Her face was full of sorrow, and the two kids beside her looked like their world had ended. I didn't even want to look at them. "Your David has been dead for 3 years. If it weren't for me, the grass on his grave would be taller than your son by now. And you pick now to apologize?" "Daddy." Finn rushed forward and hugged my leg. "Daddy's not dead. Daddy, do you not want me anymore?" I glanced at the child, the harsh words I was about to say getting caught in my throat. "Finn, be a good boy. Just live with your mother from now on." Pushed him away. As I was about to close the gate, I heard another daddy. It was Noah. I yanked the gate open, my eyes like daggers as I stared at him. "You shut your mouth. What damn right do you have to call him daddy?" Noah seemed terrified by my reaction. Even Amelia tried to step between us. I advanced on him step by step. "You, the main culprit who drove him to his death. What right do you have to call him daddy?" The boy was frozen in place, stunned. How did it feel? Was it wonderful, dissecting his little goldfish with your own hands? Hiding in the shadows, watching him suppress his grief, watching the light in his eyes slowly die out. Did that give you a sense of accomplishment? You're a little hero, aren't you? You personally destroyed his last bit of hope and then put it on his pillow. Weren't you happy? Amelia came to pull me back. "Leo, that's enough. He's just a child." "A child?" "Oh yes, he's your family's good little boy, isn't he?" He knew his stepfather wasn't welcome. He knew that no matter how vicious he was, no one would ever stand up for him. So your good son, in David's most helpless and painful moment, destroyed his last will to live. I didn't know. I really didn't know he was sick. I didn't know the goldfish were so important to him. Noah broke down, sobbing. "You knew. How could you not have known?" I stared at him viciously. "Did you not know his situation in the Wilson family? They called him Mr. Wilson. But not a single person respected him or cared about his feelings. Even the clothes and jewelry in his closet were just borrowed props to keep up appearances. His depression was so severe back then. He tried to save himself. He wanted to get a pet of his own, something to keep him company every day, to talk to. But in your Wilson family, in that soul-crushing place, what was he allowed to have? Cats and dogs were out of the question, of course. He knew that if he brought home a dog or a cat, Noah would find a way to get rid of it the next day. So after thinking it over, he secretly kept a fish in his room. It was silent, wouldn't bother anyone, and wouldn't be discovered. But even then, your good son wouldn't let him be. He snuck into his room, brutally dissected those two fish, and left their bodies on his pillow. Tell me, Amelia, isn't he your good son? Isn't he a fine descendant raised by the Wilson family? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. And as I laughed, I felt something cold and wet on my face. Amelia fled with her two sons in tow. Later, I received the signed divorce papers from Amelia. She gave me a lot of money, almost half her entire fortune. After that, I'd see Finn every school vacation. He would just stand there in the distance, sometimes looking at me, sometimes at my flower shop, but he never came inside. I think he probably knew that I didn't want to see any of the Wilsons again. And that included him. Epilogue. My name is Noah. For the first 15 years of my life, I hated David. For the rest of my life, I have been atoning for that hate. The day my mother took Finn and me to apologize to him, just as he was about to close the gate without even looking at me, on some strange impulse I called out the word daddy. And it was that one word that condemned me to a lifetime of guilt. That was the first time I ever called him daddy. It was also the last. From that day on, the man who had loved me for 10 years never gave me another chance to call him that. When we got home that day, my mother punished me severely. The belt hurt as it struck my skin, but I felt it wasn't enough. What was this pain compared to the hurt I had inflicted on him? Later, I cried. My mother knelt down and cried with me. She said it wasn't my fault, that she was the real culprit. David had died because of her indifference and neglect. She was the one who most deserved to die, the one who most needed to atone. After that day, everyone changed. Grandpa announced he was going to a monastery in the mountains to become a monk. Mom didn't stop him. The day Grandpa left, he hugged Finn with red-rimmed eyes, but Finn pulled away. I know Grandpa was heartbroken, but this was the sin we had all committed. Finn changed, too. He became quiet and stopped clinging to me. I know I was one of the people he hated. I was the one who made him lose his father. Mom changed, too. Although she went to work, ate, and slept as usual, her face never again showed any sign of ease or relaxation. Once, I saw her in the garden burning the diaries David had left behind. She said they were too heavy, that it wouldn't be good for Finn to see them someday. When she was done, I saw her cough up a mouthful of blood. I changed too. I lost the right to be a child. My mother and my younger brother became my responsibility. Everyone praised me for growing up, for becoming a responsible man just like my mother. But I know I'm no man. I'm the murderer who killed David. I never saw David again. Mom actually took my brother to see him every holiday. They would just watch from a distance, checking to see if he was doing well, if he was happy. Oh, and his flower shop later became a guest house. Mom said he met a lot of people from all walks of life that he could talk to. He ran his business casually, closing for half the year because the owner was off traveling with friends. And so I think, away from the Wilson family, he was probably his truly happy self. He was finally no one's husband, no one's father. He was finally free to be himself.